I recently became a parent. Jessica, the person who took Michael away from me by pretending to be pregnant, sent me a message demanding a $5,000 baby shower gift. Even though I've moved on and remarried, Jessica's presence still bothers me. Despite being my sister, she hasn't changed and continues to cause trouble without any concern. John, a friend, suggested we attend the celebration, and I reluctantly agreed, trusting that he has a plan to deal with Jessica's antics. While Jessica may find it amusing now, I believe she'll face consequences for her actions soon. As for me, my name is John Johnson, and I work as an office assistant in a local company. Shifting to a different story, I've been dating someone since my college days. I met Michael Smith, a medical student, through club activities. He comes from a family of allergy specialists, and his father's clinic is well known across the country. Initially, I thought Michael was just a smart and wealthy guy due to his family background. But as we got to know each other, I discovered his uniqueness. We bonded over our shared interest in a film director's work, and my initiative to invite him to a movie paid off. He began to see me as someone special. Our relationship extended beyond college, and Michael proposed when I was 25. He shared his aspiration to become a great doctor, eventually taking over his dad's clinic. Excitedly, he asked me to be part of this journey with him, and I gladly accepted. Pregnant shortly after our wedding, I was elated, believing Michael would be an excellent father. The baby's health was my primary concern, regardless of gender. However, my joy turned to despair when severe morning sickness hit me hard. Constant nausea forced me to resign from my job, and I found solace in eating to combat the sickness. The house became a mess with snack wrappers and bread bags scattered around. Returning home one day, Michael expressed his disappointment about the chaotic state of our home and my apparent weight gain. I explained that the morning sickness compelled me to eat constantly. Instead of empathy, he cruelly compared me to a pig that had given up on staying slim, laughing mockingly at my struggle. Shocked by his insensitivity, I clung to the hope that he would return to his kind self after the baby's birth, but that hope too would soon be shattered. One day, my sister Jessica paid a visit. "Hey, Naomi, you're here. Place looks a bit chaotic though. Sorry about the mess." "No worries. I'm used to it. It's like a second home." Jessica, my sister, appeared before me, worn out and struggling with morning sickness. Despite her occasional visits, I was too unwell to entertain her properly. Hoping for a distraction, I started a conversation, sharing the news that it seemed the baby in my belly was a girl. "Wow, didn't know you were already thinking about dressing up and shopping. Does Michael know?" "Yep, it's going to be a girl." I told Michael right away. "I dream of wearing matching outfits with my child." "Jessica, you've always been stylish. I'll count on your advice when the time comes." Jessica turned around, smiling meaningfully. "That's right. Michael is still a rookie doctor, but he'll eventually take over the family clinic." "Stop it, Jessica. That's too harsh. You really have a sharp tongue." Jessica is sarcastic and sometimes hits hard with her words. As her younger sister, I've grown used to it, but it can be tough when I'm unwell. Jessica quickly switched back to her usual smile. "Sorry, slipped into my usual mode. So, Naomi, anything bothering you lately?" "Well, Michael's been coming home late. As a doctor, it's unavoidable. But he's at the hospital all the time, even on weekends. We hardly have time to talk these days." "I see. Not surprising for someone claiming to be a doctor's wife like you." Jessica's icy smile sent a chill down my spine. "Well, I came to talk to you today." As she spoke, Jessica glanced toward the living room door, and entering from there was Michael. "Michael, did you finish work early at the hospital today? We need to talk. Let's get a divorce." "What kind of joke is this? What do you mean?" As soon as I returned home, Michael's words confused me. I knew he wasn't the type to make a terrible joke, especially given our long relationship since college and the fact that I was carrying his child. "Look, your beloved husband is saying this. You should listen to his request and let go quickly." Jessica's shocking statement left me in disbelief. Michael awkwardly looked at me. I can't see you as a woman anymore after you kept eating and gaining weight. But this is morning sickness. I feel sick if I don't eat. Jessica triumphantly stared at me. That's the way it is. And the baby in your belly, being a girl, won't be the heir to the Smith Clinic. But I carried Michael's child in my belly, a suitable heir. I felt a sinking feeling as Jessica lovingly stroked her belly. I'm 3 months pregnant, and it's a boy, according to the tests. You can't be serious. I just had a baby. What are you doing while I'm going through all this pain? Your excuses, quitting your job, and just eating all the time are unacceptable. I'm tired of watching you lying around, constantly eating snacks. I take care of myself, so I don't have morning sickness, even when pregnant. I won't lose my self-control and eat like a pig, unlike you. I was at a loss for words, seeing Jessica's smug face, and Michael looking down at the floor, guilt-ridden. While I didn't know about Jessica being pregnant with a boy, as an heir, I wanted a son. I value a beautiful wife like Jessica over someone who indiscriminately gains weight. Isn't that just a desire for an heir, while a beautiful wife is your own selfish preference? I'll pay alimony, so let's part without any fuss. Witnessing Michael's apology, I realized that our relationship could never return to its former state. Following the divorce, I became a single mother and gave birth to our daughter. Unfortunately, Michael's promise of alimony turned out to be mere words with no actual financial support. After childbirth, I had to work to make ends meet since I had no one to rely on. Unsure of my options, I took a job at a nearby department store that was hiring. Life took an unexpected turn, and my hard work and character caught the attention of John Johnson, a highly regarded manager in the external sales department. Tough day. You're always working hard. Thanks. I'm about to finish up soon. Are you done for the day, John? Yeah. Oh, there's this great Italian place nearby. I want you to try, Naomi. And it's a little gift for your daughter. Through casual conversations, our connection grew, leading to dating and eventually our remarriage. Naomi, I might be a guy 20 years older than you, but I sincerely want to make you and your daughter happy. Will you marry me? Are you sure about me? I'd be delighted. Life after remarriage was truly blissful, a kind husband, and my daughter and I enjoyed a peaceful life. However, I failed to notice the ominous footsteps approaching our tranquil days. One day, while Jan was at work and I had some time off, an email arrived. It was from Jessica, and the content was shocking. A baby is born. I'm expecting a $5,000 baby shower gift. A gasp escaped me as I read that abrupt email. Memories flooded back from 5 years ago when Jessica had an affair with Michael and took him away. Now asking for a $5,000 baby shower gift, seemed excessive. I couldn't forget that day, the expressions on Jessica and Michael's faces, their disregard for my suffering from morning sickness, was unforgivable. Uncertain about how to respond to Jessica's email, John returned from work, sensing something was amiss. Concerned, he asked, "What's wrong, Naomi? You look pale." "Oh, John, it's a message from my sister. She had a baby. The sister who married your ex-husband, Michael." "Yeah, I don't want to see her face or hear from her. Plus, she's asking for a $5,000 baby shower gift." As John listened and glanced at my phone, he suddenly said, "Wait. This Jessica Smith name, you know her? I didn't mention her when we got married because I didn't want to remember." "Yeah, I've never been introduced to her by you, but I wonder." John, contemplating while looking at the email, seemed to recall something. "We didn't properly greet her during our wedding, so let's visit her now. Also, I just remembered something I needed to do back at the department store." He quickly prepared to leave. "Going back to the department store now. Sorry, there's something I need to do." A few hours later, John returned with a thick file. "Is it okay if we visit your sister, Jessica, 2 weeks from now on Sunday? We both had the day off, and I'd like her to meet my parents and cousins too." "Your parents and cousins too?" "Jessica loves being the center of attention, so she'll probably be fine. But why? I've heard your ex-husband, Michael, is famous for allergy treatment. My family has a history of allergies. Thought we might get some good advice. I remembered hearing from friends that Michael had taken over his father's allergy clinic. Michael's dad was an authority on allergy treatment, and Michael became an allergist too. A friend told me. Okay, I'll contact Jessica. Jessica quickly agreed when I contacted her. I want to see the baby and will bring a gift. Can I bring some relatives too? They really want to meet you. Of course, the more guests, the more gifts. Looking forward to seeing you in 2 weeks on Sunday. 2 weeks later, on Sunday, I visited Jessica's house with John, his parents, and relatives, including his cousins, in a quiet residential area. Her stylish house stood next to the clinic, its white walls gleaming. John's parents and relatives were surprised by its luxurious design, excited to meet the renowned allergist. Welcome. I've been waiting for you. Long time no see, Jessica. You look happy. Of course, I was worried about my first child's birth, but it all worked out in the end. I felt something off in Jessica's words. First childbirth? Didn't you say you were pregnant with a boy before? Oh, did I not tell you? I miscarried that time, so this is my first. John, standing beside me, nodded meaningfully. Seeing John's face, Jessica started to tremble. Oh, hello. Nice to meet you. Hello, you must be Naomi's sister. I heard a bit about the miscarriage. Yes, but I don't want to remember the miscarriage. Jessica turned her face away in a huff and started to walk off. Sorry about that. Oh, there's something I wanted to give you, Jessica. What? Something for me? Jan handed her an envelope. It's pastel-colored, and the word congratulations written on it, thick enough to be noticeable even from the side. Here you go. I wanted to give this to Jessica personally. Got it right? Just what I've been waiting for. I glanced at John and whispered to him, Hey, we aren't rich, and we don't have to give Jessica the $5,000 she asked for. But John, unfazed, pet me off. It's fine. Trust me. You'll understand if you watch. What do you mean if I watch? While we were talking about the envelope, Jessica had already started opening it. I need to check if it's exactly $5,000. With this thickness, it might even be $10,000. The cute envelope was torn open with a ripping sound. Jessica's face clouded over the moment she opened it. What's this? John stepped forward with a salesperson's smile to explain. Mrs. Jessica Smith, this is a detailed statement of your purchases at the department store over the past 5 years. You said to put it on my tab, and this is the amount you've accumulated to date. What are you talking about? I don't know anything about this. Jessica held a statement listing names of luxury watches and brand bags. Seeing the 5-digit figure in the amount column, I was in disbelief. Indeed, Mr. Michael Smith himself and his parents are valued customers with an external sales card contract. However, with such a high amount, we needed to confirm, just to be sure. My husband is the famous allergist Michael Smith. As the wife of the clinic's director, using 1 or 2 external sales cards is nothing, is that so? Also, there's something else I personally wanted to verify. John paused before continuing. About 5 years ago, we had complaints about a customer flaunting their external sales card and making extremely unpleasant remarks. Do you know anything about this? What's that? What does it matter? Since we had several complaints, I checked with the staff who were nearby at the time. The content of the conversation was so terrible that the staff remembered it clearly. Glancing sideways, I saw Jessica's expression harden. The staff said the conversation was about stealing someone's husband, who happens to be her brother-in-law. Could it be? Yes, that's right. And she bragged about using a fake pregnancy to break them up, laughing loudly. She talked about how she lied about miscarrying like it was some kind of heroic tale. That's when I realized that time. Jessica's claim of being pregnant with a boy, the hair, was all a lie to snatch Michael. Of course, there was no pregnancy, so no morning sickness or changes in her body shape. What are you saying? That story was about me? Matching the complaints with the external sales card, your name, Jessica Smith, came up. I can't believe this. You are marrying into a doctor's family, becoming the clinic director's wife. I couldn't stand it. I had to do whatever it took to tell Michael that I was the right one for him. I couldn't believe that Michael had fallen for Jessica's scheme, and she had lied to marry him. While I was in shock, the door opened. What's this all about? Explain yourself, Jessica. Since when have you been here? From the beginning. I came back to get something I forgot and found the external sales card statement. And now, I hear the pregnancy 5 years ago was all a lie. You trapped me, Michael shouted, and Jessica began to laugh. So what? You got a beautiful wife, and we have a child now, so it's fine, right? Don't joke with me. I can't live with a liar like you. Let's get a divorce. You can't be serious. What about our child? Don't you feel sorry for them? Pushing her away, Michael glared at Jessica with a furious expression. I can't live with a liar and reckless spender like you. It's not good for the child either. We're getting a divorce. I'm taking custody. Are you kidding me? Do you have any idea what I went through to give birth to this child? This child needs to become a doctor in the future to support us. You're just thinking about yourself. There's no point in talking about this now. Let's handle the rest through a lawyer. The relatives who came along hoping to get some effective medicine from the famous allergist were frozen in shock at this chaotic scene. I was so embarrassed to admit that she was my sister. Afterward, Michael got a good lawyer specializing in divorce and successfully got divorced and won custody. Meanwhile, Jessica, who had been shopping to her heart's content on credit using the external sales card during her marriage, was now being chased for repayments. Hey, if your husband hadn't brought that statement, I'd still be the clinic director's wife. I'm being hounded for repayments now. Help your sister out in a pinch, will you? Why should I? You brought this on yourself, didn't you? And you should pay for your own shopping. Unexpectedly, I got a message from Michael via social media. Hey, can we start over? If Jessica hadn't lied about having a boy 5 years ago, we would have been fine as a couple. I want to see our daughter too. I have forgotten how you left me suffering with morning sickness and mocked me, then cheated on me. After 5 years of no contact, the last thing I wanted was to see his face again. Michael seemed to be struggling to keep the clinic he inherited from his father running, but he couldn't stop gossip due to the infidelity rumors. Patients stopped coming to the Smith Clinic, which Michael inherited, had a 1-star rating and unbelievably bad reviews on a hospital review site. It seemed only a matter of time before he would have to close the clinic. He was so fixated on inheriting ironically. He was so obsessed with having a male heir. My husband, daughter, and I continue to live happily as a family. Naomi, are you ready? Shall we head out soon? Yes, I was just remembering how delicious the spaghetti you brought me from that restaurant was back when I was a single mother. Jen used to order from a restaurant for takeout as a way to approach me back then. My daughter was small, and since we weren't dating, we never ate at the restaurant, just as colleagues. You had just gotten divorced and were having a hard time, right? I thought even a little bit of delicious food could bring you happiness. It was your kindness that drew me to you, the dish that brought us together. Back then, it was just my daughter and me eating takeout, but now it's different. I'm happy that we can eat together as a family. Who would have thought that a day like this, going out with you and our daughter, would come? We can split up if you want, but I want to stay with our son, John said firmly after scolding me. He seemed satisfied as he took a deep breath. As I thought about how to respond, our son, who had been standing by, stepped forward. Dad, if you don't know, let me tell you, he said, pointing at his father's mistress. Our son's words made me smile mischievously. My name's Jennifer. I'm 42 years old and work as a freelance artist. I've been married for 15 years and have an 8th grade son. Since we got married, John has struggled to hold down a job. So I've been the main breadwinner, juggling work, household chores, and raising our child. I've had to work from home because John's jobs were unstable, leaving me to care for our son. It was tough at first, but now I have a stable income from illustrating educational materials. thanks to referrals from previous clients. With David getting older, I can work from home and go out for projects a few times a week. So the three of us are living together peacefully, but there's something on my mind about John. Despite my steady income, he doesn't seem motivated to find a new job and seems lost. I'm concerned about him being 44 and not having a clear direction. He rarely works full-time, so he should have free time, but he doesn't help much around the house or with our son David. This has been the pattern since we got married, so I've stopped expecting much from him. He doesn't seem interested in David, who's going through tough teenage years, which bothers me. David isn't very talkative, but he sometimes helps with chores without me asking. Maybe he's learned from seeing me manage work and chores since he was young. David has matured a lot, but John hasn't. Lately, John's been coming home late more often, adding to my unease and frustration. It's natural to feel suspicious. Even on days when he's not supposed to work, he claims to have work-related reasons to leave. But I doubt he's secretly job hunting without telling us. There are some things that make me feel suspicious. Recently, John hasn't been spending much time looking after David. He's taken a sudden interest in driving him to and from his basketball club, even though David is just in 8th grade. We have a rule in our household to always drop off and pick up due to safety concerns in today's world. I've always had to fit this around my work schedule, but John started offering to do it lately. While I appreciate the help, something didn't sit right with me. My suspicion grew when I happened to pass by the basketball club one day. I decided to take a different route home after shopping and saw John there, despite him saying he'd be late due to work out of town. He was chatting happily with a woman who seemed to work at the facility. As I stood there, the woman noticed me and asked if I was David's mom. I awkwardly acknowledged her, realizing I hadn't remembered all the staff's faces. I chatted with her briefly, ignoring my husband's tense demeanor. The woman introduced herself as Jessica, but I found it odd that she didn't mention her role with my child. Seeing my confusion, John seemed eager to end their conversation. On the way home, there was an uncomfortable silence between us, and it felt like he was intentionally avoiding me. Despite his seemingly cheerful conversation with Jessica earlier, he walked beside me with his head down, avoiding eye contact. I could sense that something wasn't right. His recent late returns, sudden interest in doing drop-offs and pickups, and strange behavior after being seen with Jessica made me suspect that there was more to their relationship. Could he be having an affair with her? Deep down, I had felt a shift ever since he started taking over the transportation duties. He had become distant from me. That day, when our son returned from the basketball club, I casually asked about his father's behavior, but all I got was a dismissive, "I don't know." It seemed our son was frustrated with his dad's insistence on driving him every day. Forcing our reluctant son to go along with it didn't sit well with me. I had been harboring suspicions for a while now, and it seemed they were about to be confirmed. I was just passing by, so I thought I'd drop in. "David, how are you feeling?" Jessica said as she entered our home. "Thank you for coming all this way, Jessica." "Now please, have some coffee," I replied politely. Jessica, whom I hadn't suspected of being involved with my husband, started finding reasons to visit our home more frequently. She would mention our son occasionally, but it was clear her real motive was something else. Her visits always coincided with the times my husband was home, never when my son or I were alone. Watching them chat cheerfully in the living room confirmed my suspicions of John's infidelity. About a month after I first noticed his odd behavior, he began coming home later and later, sometimes disappearing for days at a time. When I confronted him about sneaking in late one night, he joked about it, but his reaction changed when I mentioned cheating. He snapped at me, telling me to mind my own business and focus on my work. His irritation was evident as he stormed out of the room. I was angry that he acted as if he was doing everything when, in reality, he left all the housework and parenting to me. "What's wrong, Mom?" David, who had been witnessing our arguments, spoke up unexpectedly. "Oh, it's nothing. Why are you still awake?" I deflected, but David seemed hesitant before finally opening up about his suspicions regarding Jessica. whom he believed might be involved with his father. He found her clingy and irritating, especially since she would come to our house uninvited. It was a relief to know that I wasn't alone in disliking her presence, but the situation was far from resolved. When I returned home from a client meeting, I heard laughter coming from the living room. It was John and Jessica. David must have stayed in his room as he didn't join them. As I entered the living room, both John and Jessica turned to look at me. John appeared uncomfortable as usual, while Jessica greeted me with a confident smile. "Welcome back, David's mom," Jessica greeted me as I bumped into John, who then invited me inside. I couldn't shake off the unease I felt about Jessica addressing my husband by his name. "Oh, we seem to run into each other often, don't we? Isn't work keeping you busy?" I retorted with a touch of sarcasm. Jessica replied with a smug expression. "Well, part of my job involves visiting homes." I wanted to lash out at her for being so presumptuous. "What part of your job involves critiquing people's homes?" I wanted to ask, but I held my tongue. Instead, she commented on the cozy atmosphere of our house, insinuating that it wasn't kept very clean. Her sly grin made it clear she was enjoying pointing out my shortcomings. My husband didn't defend me. Instead, he chuckled along with Jessica, even adding that I should do better with the housework since I'm always home. It frustrated me that I was the only one being mocked. Feeling overwhelmed, I quickly retreated to the bedroom, still holding my belongings, overcome with frustration, sadness, and embarrassment. I worried that Jessica might replace me in my family eventually. If she wasn't involved with my son's basketball team, I might have confronted her. But I hesitated for my son's sake. Despite my concerns, my husband and Jessica continued their rendezvous, openly displaying their relationship while I remained silent. People told me they often met under the guise of discussing our son's education. Determined to uncover the truth, I searched for evidence during my husband's absences and discovered plenty of proof of his infidelity. Despite his claims that we couldn't afford gifts for birthdays or anniversaries, I found receipts for motel stays, lavish dinners, and expensive jewelry in his coat pocket. I even found receipts for places he said were too expensive for us to visit. It pained me to think he spent money on his mistress, but not on his wife. Despite my hurt, I stayed composed and continued gathering evidence. Divorce crossed my mind, but I wanted to wait until David graduated high school. Nevertheless, I resolved to gather as much evidence as possible to protect myself. I wondered where my husband got the money for his affair. Even if he used his entire salary, it would be challenging to sustain. Lost in thought, I suddenly remembered our college fund account for David. A wave of dread washed over me as I checked its transactions, revealing large withdrawals over the past few months. I had opened the savings account specifically to secure my son's education funds just in case. It had been a while since I last checked it, and I was shocked to discover that the balance had significantly decreased. Despite meticulously managing our credit card usage and monthly bills, I had neglected to monitor the savings account regularly. The realization hit me hard, and I struggled to steady my trembling hands. The money he spent on his affair came from the savings I had diligently set aside for our son. At that moment, I no longer cared who he was having an affair with. What I couldn't forgive was that he had used the money meant for our child's future for his own selfish desires. His betrayal against me as his wife paled in comparison to the betrayal against our son. Suppressing my boiling anger, I resolved to continue pretending that everything was normal. I didn't want our son, who was at such an impressionable age, to catch on. I chose to shoulder all the problems and worries alone, not wanting to burden our hardworking son with unnecessary stress. However, the strain began to take its toll on me, leading to small mistakes in my household chores and work. Even Mrs. Smith, a longtime client, noticed my worn-out state and expressed her concern. While I struggled, my husband seemed to be enjoying himself with his mistress more than ever. Without my interference, he appeared more relaxed. Sooner or later, our son David would inevitably become aware of the issues surrounding our family. Recognizing my subdued demeanor, David silently offered to help with the laundry, expressing his understanding of the situation. His quiet support warmed my heart and fueled my anger toward the traitor who had jeopardized the money I had saved for our son. There had to be consequences for his betrayal. I contemplated reaching out to someone who had offered to support me, clenching my fists as I swore vengeance against my husband and his mistress. One evening, my husband abruptly announced that he would be away for almost a week due to work. He insisted that he was attending a training program in another state, but I had my doubts about the truthfulness of his explanation. The restaurant chain where he worked only had locations within our state, and there were no offices or branches elsewhere. I distinctly remembered him boasting about this perk when he first took the job, emphasizing that there would be no need to relocate out of state. While my son and I engaged in conversation with him, we both harbored skepticism about his story. My son casually mentioned, one of the staff members from my club is also off work for a week around this time. I don't know if she's going on vacation, but it seems unusual. Going on a week-long vacation requires some cash. Despite our casual tone, my husband appeared startled by our observation. Until then, he had been proudly discussing the rigorous training program he was supposedly attending, but suddenly fell silent and glanced down at his smartphone anxiously. Ever since I became certain of my husband's infidelity, I had been monitoring both him and Jessica closely. I even hired a private investigator who confirmed that Jessica, who worked at the basketball facility, was also taking a week off. I had known all along that my husband's supposed business trip was merely a cover for a romantic getaway with Jessica. While I could have caught him red-handed, I had other plans in mind. I had been scheming since learning of my husband's intentions to travel with Jessica. Naturally, I didn't intend to proceed without my son's agreement, but fortunately, he was on board with my plan. On the day of their trip, I bid farewell to my eager husband, and then my son and I set about cleaning the house. With the assistance of some relatives who came over, we also began packing. Our plan was to relocate while my husband was away and stay elsewhere until we found a new home, temporarily staying with some accommodating relatives. Upon learning of our situation, our relatives, enraged by my husband's actions yet concerned for David, graciously offered us a place to stay. Additionally, I safeguarded our savings by transferring all remaining funds to my personal account, ensuring that my husband couldn't access it. As we made preparations, I noticed my husband's belongings were still in the house as we prepared to leave. It didn't feel right to abandon his things, so after some consideration, I decided to send them to a specific location. With Mrs. Smith's approval, I arranged for a pickup service to collect the boxes. Surveying the neat and tidy house my son and I now shared, we exchanged a satisfied smile. A few days after we had relocated, my phone suddenly rang, startling me in the midst of our temporary stay at my relative's place. Seeing my husband's name on the caller ID, I couldn't help but sigh involuntarily. "Hello, Jennifer," he greeted me. "Hey, what's going on?" "It's the middle of the day," I responded, already anticipating his request. "Actually, during my training, I ran out of money. Can you transfer some funds to my account?" His voice sounded panicked, confirming my suspicions. No wonder our savings account was drained. He couldn't access any funds. His desperation was palpable, more so than usual. Was it because he didn't want to appear inadequate in front of Jessica? Feeling exasperated, I declined his plea, almost amused by his predicament. "Why do you use the account you always dip into? There should still be plenty left," I suggested with a smirk. After a brief silence, he erupted into angry shouts. "Are you okay with me being broke?" he yelled, but I refused to entertain his outburst. "Your training will be over soon. You'll manage without money," I countered, goading him further. Suddenly, a frantic female voice could be heard in the background. It was the moment I had been waiting for. Surprised by Jessica's voice in the background, my husband abruptly ended the call. With everything falling into place, the next day my son and I headed to a specific location. A grand mansion with immaculate gardens, clearly the residence of affluent individuals. As if on cue, we found my husband and his mistress in a room. My husband looked terrified as he sat on the floor, offering apologies to someone. That someone, with a stern expression, was Mrs. Smith, a longtime client of mine and the principal of the middle school attended by my son David. Over the years, we had developed a close bond, sharing personal troubles and trusting each other implicitly. My husband's actions have caused trouble, and I must apologize. I began taking responsibility for my husband's misconduct. It turned out that Jessica, who had been on a trip with my husband, was confronted by her parents about a package she had received at home. She had no choice but to return home immediately. And naturally, she insisted that my husband accompany her. Hearing Mrs. Smith's words, my husband trembled with fear. Mrs. Smith had been deeply concerned about my declining health since learning of John's affair. When I finally confided in her about the affair, and she discovered that her daughter was the mistress, she was devastated. However, Mrs. Smith was determined to make amends for her daughter's actions and had been cooperating with me ever since. She offered a heartfelt apology, gesturing toward the piles of boxes, and sternly reprimanded her daughter. "You should be ashamed of yourself for coveting what isn't yours," she scolded. Jessica's attempts to defend herself fell flat, claiming it was all a misunderstanding and questioning the sanity of the sender of numerous packages to their house. Turning to my husband, Jessica pleaded for support, but he remained silent under my disapproving gaze. With a panicked expression, Jessica confessed that she had no idea her mother worked with me and never intended for her strict mother to discover her affair with a married man. Mrs. Smith is a teacher, and she has very strict rules about what's right and wrong. She's not likely to forgive her daughter for what she did, but I didn't feel sorry for Jessica at all. "I want you to say sorry," Mrs. Smith said firmly. "My daughter has to make up for what she did. Even if it takes her whole life, she has to do the right thing." "Why is this happening to me?" Jessica cried, but I didn't pay attention to her. Instead, I looked at my husband, who was standing silently beside her. "Don't you have something to say?" I asked him, feeling angry. Then, unexpectedly, David, who was standing behind me, spoke up. "Jessica isn't just a regular worker. She's only an intern at the club," David said firmly. "And don't you dare try to be friendly with me again. Your flirting with other men is gross." It turned out that Jessica wasn't even officially hired at the club. My husband always thought Jessica was very skilled and passionate about working with students, which I found funny. It turned out they both had secrets. Seeing Jessica's shocked face, I decided to give her some advice before I left. "Did you know that I pay for everything? The rent, our living expenses, and even David's school fees?" I told her. "John has been doing odd jobs for years, but you wouldn't know that." "Hey, hold on a minute." John tried to interrupt, but it was too late. Jessica was so surprised by what I said that she collapsed on the spot. It turned out John had been pretending to have plenty of money, hiding the fact that I was the one supporting our family. He wanted to impress Jessica, so he made it seem like he had everything under control. He made me look lazy and useless in front of her. Mrs. Smith was devastated when she found out the truth about John and Jessica. When David and I happily returned home, we saw John looking defeated, with Jessica and all their things. Mrs. Smith had kicked him out. Months passed since we moved. Following Mrs. Smith's advice, I hired a good lawyer to handle my divorce. Everything went smoothly, and I felt relieved. I even found out that the savings I had put aside for David's education could be used as child support. As for Jessica, rumors spread quickly at the basketball club about her affair with a parent. She lost her job and tried to get help from her parents, but Mrs. Smith wasn't willing to help. Jessica ended up alone and confused. She left John because he didn't have any money, and now he's trying to make things right. But David and I aren't interested. Mrs. Smith felt guilty for what her daughter did to our family. I reassured her and thanked her for helping me find a new job. Life has been good with just David and me, and I'm proud to be David's mom. David's simple words brought tears to my eyes. I want to keep working as an illustrator, but most importantly, I want to be the best mom I can be for David.
"Mary, it's me," he said, his voice a ghost from the past. It had been a decade since my ex-husband and our son's wife vanished into thin air after eloping. I'd buried thoughts of them deep within, avoiding the pain they left behind. But now, unexpectedly, his voice pierced through the years. "I'm going to move into your parents' place. You're still there, aren't you?" His demand was as startling as it was unwelcome. "I'm sorry for the abruptness, but you need to vacate my home," he insisted, leaving no room for negotiation. His request caught me off guard. A decade had passed since we last exchanged words, and his sudden reappearance left me bewildered. What could he possibly want now, after all this time? And why was he asking to move into my parents' home with his unfaithful partner? "Still bunking with the folks, huh? Any new spouses since we last talked?" His inquiry dripped with a mix of curiosity and condescension. "Get out of there pronto." Anger surged within me for the first time in a decade, fueled by his audacity to mock me further. Little did he know, my living arrangements had changed drastically over the years. "Sorry, but if you're eyeing my parents' place, you're out of luck," I retorted. "Huh?" His confusion was palpable, a stark contrast to the rage boiling within me. I made it clear to him that after a decade, my determination had only grown stronger. "Mary Kane, 60 years old, and still teaching part-time at a private school," I asserted. Despite being at retirement age, I persisted with my part-time work, albeit with a reduced salary. My admiration for my parents, both esteemed educators, stemmed from cherished memories of my childhood. Their influence fueled my ambition to follow in their footsteps. There was a time when I had a husband, Stephen, but that chapter ended in divorce a decade ago, and now, out of the blue, he resurfaced after all these years of estrangement. Stephen and I first crossed paths in college, back when I was just 21, juggling part-time teaching at a tutoring center with my studies in education. Stephen, a fresh face at the tutoring center, had recently stepped into the role of a part-time teacher. Despite his seniority in years, it fell upon me with my longer tenure to mentor him as directed by the center's director. As I guided him through the ropes, our camaraderie blossomed into a close friendship, which eventually bloomed into something more. 3 years of courtship later, we exchanged vows and welcomed our son, Michael, into the world. With graduation came a full-time teaching position for me, prompting my departure from the tutoring center. Our journey together as a family was just unfolding, filled with promises of a bright future. 25 years flew by, witnessing Michael find love in Sarah, who he'd met during his studies at a design school in New York. We rejoiced in their union, hopeful for the happiness they would build together as a couple. Then, unexpectedly, Michael returned home, burdened with something he needed to share. "Mom, you're still married to Dad, right?" His question, though seemingly innocuous, stirred a mix of emotions within me as I welcomed him back, the worry beginning to settle in. "I spotted Dad strolling through Brooklyn with Sarah," Michael disclosed. "Okay," I replied, my mind racing with disbelief. According to Michael, he caught sight of Sarah and Dad arm in arm last Friday night in Brooklyn's bustling hotel district. Suspicion gripped him, prompting him to tail them discreetly. His surveillance led him to witness them disappear into a hotel. I couldn't wrap my head around it. Despite being in-laws, Stephen and Sarah shared a bond akin to that of a father and daughter. The notion of them meeting privately, let alone in a hotel, seemed unfathomable. I clung to the hope that it was a misunderstanding or a nightmare, but Michael's evidence shattered that illusion. The image on Michael's phone screen depicted a crystal-clear snapshot of Dad and Sarah entering the hotel arm in arm, unmistakably captured on a Friday night. Dad's excuse of overtime at the office crumbled in the face of this damning proof. Additionally, I couldn't shake off the memory of Stephen's frequent late arrivals home over the past few months. His explanations vary from happy hour gatherings with colleagues to sudden business trips or urgent work demands on holidays. Initially, I accepted his excuses without much skepticism, but upon closer reflection, I realized these occurrences had become more frequent lately. There seemed to be a pattern emerging, one that made me increasingly uneasy. Could these excuses be a cover for spending more time with Sarah? Requesting Michael to forward the image, I assured him I would confront his father before bidding him good night. Anticipation gnawed at me as I awaited Stephen's return home that evening. When he finally arrived, the scent of alcohol clung to him, aggravating my nerves. Summoning my courage, I approached him directly. "Stephen, Michael mentioned something today. Did you meet Sarah last Friday?" "Yeah," he stammered, his response lacking conviction. We did cross paths briefly. We chatted a bit, I think. His sudden alertness and the shift in his gaze didn't escape my notice. Sensing my apprehension, he countered with a question of his own. What exactly did he tell you? He mentioned spotting you and Sarah entering a hotel in Brooklyn. I disclosed, my voice tinged with concern. As I spoke, I held up the picture Michael had given me. Stephen's reaction was immediate. His eyes widened, and he seemed to choke on his words, his gaze darting around as if seeking an escape. Finally, with a heavy sigh, he seemed to resign himself to the truth. I can't believe Michael caught us, he muttered, his tone a mixture of surprise and resignation. I let myself get carried away. It's unforgivable. My heart sank as his admission sank in. No way, Stephen, I whispered, struggling to comprehend the betrayal. Realizing there was no use in denying it any longer, Stephen began to spill everything. He confessed to starting a relationship with Sarah 6 months prior, swayed by her advances and feelings that now eclipsed those for me. My mind reeled at the revelation. Had their affair begun around the time Michael and Sarah celebrated their 3rd anniversary? Despite my trembling shock, Stephen pressed on with his confession. I want to marry Sarah, Mary. I'm filing for divorce, he declared, his words like a dagger to my already shattered heart. I objected vehemently, my mind spinning with disbelief, but Stephen remained resolute. I can't continue like this. It's over between us. The following day, Stephen failed to return home. His absence was accompanied by a notable absence of his belongings and a finalized divorce decree left on the table. Later, a distraught call from Michael revealed that Sarah had disappeared, taking the divorce papers with her. It seemed she had no intention of coming back. The shock of Stephen and Sarah's sudden elopement left me reeling. That marked the end of my marriage to Stephen a decade ago. After the divorce, we sold our shared home, and I found solace in a new residence closer to my workplace. Initially, the loneliness of my new surroundings weighed heavily on me. Yet, as I immersed myself in my work, I gradually discovered that time had mended my emotional wounds. Teaching proved to be a powerful balm for my emotional wounds, a fact I only realized with hindsight. The steadfast dedication to my fulfilling career played a pivotal role in my healing journey. Continuing to work part-time at the school even after retirement, I found purpose and joy in the daily interactions with both colleagues and students. With each passing day, the weight of Stephen and Sarah's betrayal diminished, replaced by the gratification of nurturing young minds. 10 years on, thoughts of Stephen faded into the background of my life. While my income saw a decline after transitioning to part-time teaching, it remained sufficient for me to stay engaged with the school and the students who held me in high regard. Their affection and admiration filled a void akin to that of a parent. Additionally, I found solace in Michael's resilience, witnessing him throw himself into his work with renewed vigor, having overcome the initial shock of his father's and wife's betrayal. Any semblance of peace I had managed to find shattered with the shrill ring of the phone. Hello, Mary, it's Stephen. His voice pierced the silence, breaking a 10-year hiatus. I never anticipated hearing his voice again, and when I did, a surge of emotions overwhelmed me. What's the purpose of this call? You didn't reach out to reminisce about the past, did you? My words tumbled out with more force than I intended, fueled by years of pent-up resentment. After all, it was Stephen who had insisted on the divorce, leaving me to pick up the pieces. Stephen, ever composed and seemingly indifferent, countered, "Come on now, what's the point of this? Why did you even bother contacting me? You're the reason we're no longer together. I've moved on, Mary. You're not my husband anymore, and I have no interest in seeing you or hearing your voice. Let's cut to the chase, Mary. You're back at your parents', right?" His casual interruption grated on my already frayed nerves, prompting me to raise my voice once more, struggling to contain the surge of emotions stirred by his insensitive and light-hearted tone. Stephen pressed on, oblivious to my turmoil. "Sarah's expecting," he announced, the news hitting me like a freight train. "But raising the child is proving more financially challenging than we anticipated. Making ends meet has become increasingly difficult." According to his account, despite the significant age gap of 30 years, he and Sarah had shared a passionate bond. However, the dynamics shifted when Sarah fell pregnant last year, upending their lives. Both Stephen and Sarah had quit their jobs ahead of the due date, only to find themselves struggling to secure new employment. Forced to scrape by with part-time work, they faced mounting financial strain. With Sarah unable to work following the birth, their precarious financial situation loomed large. I reached out to Michael and my parents for help, but they all refused. Stephen chuckled over the phone, his words carrying the bitter edge. Stubborn lot, aren't they? His laughter echoed in my mind, conjuring images of Stephen's stern father, determined mother, and sullen younger brother, faces I hadn't seen since their wedding 13 years ago. His family, a portrait of strictness, resolve, and seriousness, had cut ties with me after the divorce. Yet, despite our estrangement, I never imagined Stephen as the type to tolerate infidelity or betrayal within his own family. So, what? You expect me to stay in our old house? I said yes, but first prioritize your relationship with your wife. Your eldest daughter and first grandchild should take precedence over a mere teacher. Leave now. His abusive tone ignited a fierce anger within me. Had my memories of Stephen over the past decade been too idealized? I hadn't anticipated this callousness from him. Then a realization dawned on me. In a subdued voice, I uttered, "I'm sorry, but if you're referring to my parents' house, it's no longer ours." "What do you mean?" Stephen's confusion mirrored my own until I clarified. "Both my parents passed away, Dad 3 years ago, Mom just last year. Their house became too much for me to manage alone, so I sold it. I don't have a house to offer you, Stephen." "Ha. I won't disclose my current address, and even if I did, you're not welcome here. Don't ever show up." Stephen's voice boomed with authority. "What about my inheritance? When your parents pass, should the family home and money come to me?" I frowned, angered by Stephen's cold calculations regarding my parents' demise. It was evident he had his eyes set on not only my funds but also my parents' estate. Despite his mention of familial ties, it was too late for any semblance of trust. I had already received my rightful share from my parents' estate, including their house. My parents had made it clear they wouldn't leave a single cent to a man who shamelessly eloped with their daughter-in-law a decade ago. On the day of our divorce, they were incensed upon learning of Stephen and Sarah's betrayal from Michael and me. Their fury was justified. They had treated Stephen like their own son, only to be repaid with the gravest betrayal. Before their passing, my parents took proactive steps to secure their estate, drafting a will to ensure everything, including our family home, would pass on to me in the event of Sarah's return. 7 years after my father's demise, my mother followed, leaving me the sole inheritor of our family's estate. While reluctant to part with the cherished memories embedded in our home, I honored my parents' wishes and decided to sell it. They hoped it would shelter someone more deserving than Stephen and Sarah. Stephen's reaction was explosive upon learning of this decision. "Don't play dumb. You can't. This is absurd. They wouldn't approve." The inheritance was legally passed down to me, I countered firmly, and their forgiveness isn't something I seek, especially not from Stephen and Sarah, who've done nothing but cause turmoil. Stephen, who had idled away his days, had no business meddling in my affairs. As I gazed at my disconnected phone, I realized Stephen's true colors: someone who would abandon others for his own gain, then lash out when denied. It was a revelation that my ex-husband, with whom I'd shared years of my life, could be so immature. As contempt simmered in my heart, another call came through, this time from Sarah. "You didn't bother to inform me about my own in-laws passing," she accused, her voice dripping with accusation. But her words failed to move me. If Sarah had truly been shocked by my parents' deaths, she would have expressed condolences or a desire to pay her respects. Instead, she immediately steered the conversation towards inheritance, legacy, and money, revealing her true priorities. Neither Sarah nor Stephen deserved a place before my parents' altar. With that thought in mind, I cut Sarah off before she could finish speaking. Later, I received a call from Michael. "Mom, did Dad and Sarah show up at your place?" he inquired. "No, they didn't, but they called, asking about the house and their inheritance," I replied. Michael's voice carried a hint of resignation. "I see. I thought they might reach out, especially after they visited me the other day." "Michael, are you okay? Did they cause any trouble?" I asked, concerned. "I'm fine, Mom, really. They just made a scene at my door. When I threatened to call the police, they took off. But I have an idea." Michael revealed his plan to me, prompting a decision to break the cycle of toxicity between Stephen and Sarah, not just for my own sake, but to safeguard my son as he embarked on a fresh chapter. A few days after putting this plan into action, I received a frantic call from Stephen. "Mary, did you have a hand in this? You're unusually quiet," he blurted out. Don't play innocent. What's going on? I demanded. They're on their way to our place, Stephen disclosed. They? Who? I pressed for clarification. Stephen explained that 7 women were en route to their apartment, his unfaithful partners. It appeared he'd been carrying on affairs with 7 other women, in addition to Sarah. Unaware of Stephen's infidelities with 7 other women, Sarah found herself caught off guard by the sudden chaos. As the women erupted in anger, Stephen's frustration grew, directed now at Sarah. The revelation of multiple affairs left me dumbfounded. I knew it was you. How did you uncover my secret? Stephen demanded. I wonder, I retorted, considering I have nothing left after my ex-husband abandoned me for another woman 10 years ago. What? Stephen's shock was palpable. Turning the conversation around, Stephen unleashed a torrent of expletives over the phone, but his outburst failed to faze me in the slightest. As Sarah's distress escalated during our conversation, she hastily packed her belongings, unleashing a heated argument with Stephen, oblivious to my presence on the line. It was a chaotic scene unfolding before my ears, reminding me of the saying, "Things spiral out of control." With a heavy heart, I directed my final words to my ex-husband, though they may have fallen on deaf ears. Farewell, Stephen. Never darken my doorstep or our son's life again. With that, I ended the call. Little did Stephen know, the tumult sparked by the women he had been unfaithful with was the very plan Michael had alluded to. After Stephen and Sarah's tumultuous visit to Michael's home, where they were swiftly turned away, he wasted no time in enlisting the services of a professional detective agency to delve deeper into their affairs. As it turned out, Stephen's infidelity with Sarah had escalated into affairs with 7 other women, 3 of whom were married. Michael promptly relayed this information to me, along with Stephen and Sarah's current address, the very apartment uncovered by the detective agency. With this knowledge in hand, Michael and I coordinated a plan. We informed all 7 women of Stephen and Sarah's whereabouts and directed them to confront the couple simultaneously. The resulting chaos at Stephen and Sarah's apartment grew so intense that law enforcement had to intervene, dispatching police to the scene. Sarah ended her relationship with Stephen, and he found himself facing lawsuits from 3 aggrieved husbands, each demanding alimony payments exceeding 3 figures. Losing Sarah, his home, and his financial stability, Stephen now lives as a homeless individual in a park, struggling to make ends meet. A colleague spotted him seeking assistance at a soup kitchen. Meanwhile, Sarah, facing her own financial burdens, was hit with alimony demands surpassing 3 figures. Forced to borrow money to cover her expenses, she turned to a black market lender, a decision that would soon prove ominous. Shortly after securing the loan, she was forcibly abducted by intimidating individuals in a car, and her whereabouts remain unknown. 10 years have passed, and I've finally reached a final resolution with Stephen. Once again, I've returned to the tranquility of my life. While I remain single, contentment fills me as I immerse myself in the vibrant atmosphere of school. That alone is sufficient for me. In time, Michael found love with a woman who has a child of her own. They are now dating with the intention of marriage. My heart swells with hope that Michael, too, will discover a newfound joy and purpose in life.
It was just a normal morning during the holiday, with the sun shining bright, hinting at a fun day ahead. I was trying to get my son Aaron ready for his baseball game when everything changed suddenly. As I opened the door, I was stunned to see my husband Mark standing there. The same husband who had disappeared without a trace 3 years ago. "This is our home," he stated firmly, but with a hint of uncertainty in his voice. Before I could fully comprehend his return, another person appeared behind him. Clara, my sister-in-law. Seeing her made my stomach twist with unease. "We're here to take custody of Aaron," Clara declared, her words dripping with false kindness. I had often wondered about this exact situation, remembering how Mark and Clara had vanished around the same time. It seemed too coincidental to be true. But with the chaos of daily life and limited resources, I hadn't been able to investigate further. Lost in these thoughts, I barely noticed Aaron's voice behind me. "Mom, who are you talking to?" My heart sank. There he stood, my brave son, unaware of the storm brewing. Clara turned her predatory smile toward him. "It's nice to meet you, Aaron. I've been wanting to meet you for a long time." Her words churned my stomach. It was the same voice that had charmed everyone. hiding the manipulative and cruel nature I knew too well, the voice I had hoped to never hear again. Confused, Aaron looked at me and then back at them. "Dad, why are you here? And who is she?" He edged closer to me, sensing the tension instinctively. Mark and Clara stood there, looking stunned and caught off guard, clearly not prepared for this confrontation. Before they could gather themselves, Aaron spoke up, his voice filled with anger. "We're leaving, so move." It was then that Mark and Clara noticed something behind me, and their faces turned pale. I couldn't help but let out a bitter laugh. Standing there was my daughter Elise, cradled in Aaron's arms. Mark's eyes widened in shock, darting between Elise and me. "Mark, Clara," I began, my voice steady despite the turmoil inside. "3 years ago, you disappeared without a word. I was left to pick up the pieces, raise Aaron, and face an unexpected pregnancy." I paused, letting the weight of my words sink in. Clara's eyes narrowed, but I pressed on. "I'm not the same person you abandoned. I fought hard to build a life for my children and me, and I won't let you come back to ruin that." Their faces showed shock, disbelief, and perhaps a hint of guilt. But it was too late for guilt. The wounds they caused were too deep. "Please leave," I said firmly. "You have no right to be here." Mark started to speak, likely with some excuse or plea, but I didn't want to hear it. I closed the door on them, on the past they represented. Turning back to my children, I saw Aaron looking at me with newfound respect, and Elise oblivious to the turmoil. I took a deep breath, steadying my racing heart. This was just the beginning. The battle lines were drawn, and I was prepared to fight for my family's future. The days that followed Mark and Clara's unwelcome visit were filled with a whirlwind of emotions and memories, threatening to overwhelm me like a tidal wave. I found myself going back to the difficult times after Mark disappeared, the nights when I couldn't sleep for worry, and the hours spent wondering what I could have done differently. Aaron struggled the most. Once a happy and outgoing kid, he became quiet and distant, his sparkle fading. I remembered how he'd push away his dinner, beg to skip school events, and give me cold looks instead of his usual warm smiles. It hurt to see him like that, but I didn't know how to help him. While I dwelled on those memories, Elise's innocent laughter filled the house, a sharp contrast to the turmoil inside me. She was my unexpected joy, a beacon of light during Mark's betrayal. Her birth gave me strength and vulnerability all at once. One night, as I tucked Aaron into bed, he looked at me seriously. "Mom, why did Dad leave us? Did we do something wrong?" His question felt like a punch to the gut. "No, honey, you did nothing wrong. Sometimes grown-ups make choices that don't make sense, and it's not because of you." "But why did he come back with Aunt Clara?" His confusion broke my heart. I sighed, trying to find the right words. "I don't know why they came back, but I do know that we're a family. You, me, and Elise. We'll face this together." He nodded slowly, his young face full of worries no child should have. "I trust you, Mom. I just wish things were like before." I kissed his forehead, whispering, "I know, my love, I wish that too." The next day, a call from my lawyer, Mr. Thompson, snapped me out of my thoughts. "Lauren, we need to talk about your legal options. Mark and Clara's accusation is unfounded, but we need to prepare a case." I listened intently, my thoughts racing. This was my chance to fight back, to ensure that Mark and Clara couldn't harm us anymore. "Let's go for it," I declared firmly. "I need to safeguard my children, and I won't allow them to be manipulated by whatever game Mark and Clara are playing." Mr. Thompson's voice was reassuring. "You're making the right choice. I'll start getting the paperwork ready. We'll show them that they can't just push you around." As I ended the call, a sense of determination settled over me. Mark and Clara had underestimated me, thinking I'd crumble under their pressure. But they were mistaken. I was stronger now, forged by the challenges I'd faced. I glanced at Elise playing nearby, and knew I'd do whatever it took to protect them. This wasn't just about revenge anymore. It was about justice for my children and myself. Mark and Clara had ignited a fierce protective instinct in me, and I was prepared to fight back with all my might. As weeks passed, my resolve solidified like steel. I braced myself for the legal battle ahead. that nothing could have prepared me for the emotional warfare to come. Mark and Clara, like vultures circling, began their campaign to wear me down. One afternoon, picking up Aaron from school, I found them waiting, casting a shadow over the sunny day. Clara's voice dripped with false sweetness as she greeted Aaron. "Hi, sweetie. We've missed you so much." Aaron clung to my hand, his body tense. "Why are you here?" he whispered. Mark stepped forward, feigning concern. "We just wanted to see you, son. We're family too, you know." Anger surged within me. "You forfeited the right to call yourselves family when you abandoned him," I snapped, pulling Aaron closer. Clara's facade cracked, her eyes narrowing. "Lauren, you can't keep him from us. We have rights." "Rights? You have no rights here," I shot back, my tone icy. "You made your choice 3 years ago. Now you have to live with it." Mark's face contorted with anger. "You think you're so perfect, Lauren. You're just a bitter woman who couldn't keep her husband happy." Aaron's grip on my hand tightened, his body trembling. "Let's go, Aaron," I said, leading him away, but Clara wasn't finished. "You'll regret this, Lauren. We'll get what we want, as we always do." Their threats lingered as we walked away, but I refused to show them any fear. I had to stay strong for Aaron and Elise. That night, their words echoed in my mind as I lay in bed. The thought of losing Aaron to them was unbearable. I couldn't let it happen. I had to be sharper, tougher. The next day, I met with Mr. Thompson, my resolve like armor. "I want full custody of Aaron, and I want Mark and Clara to have no visitation rights," I stated firmly. Mr. Thompson nodded. "It'll be a tough fight, but I'm confident we can win. You're a great mother, Lauren. The court will recognize that." As the legal preparations progressed, I found an unexpected ally at home, Aaron. One evening, he approached me, his young face serious. "Mom, I want to tell the judge I want to stay with you. Dad and Aunt Clara, they're not really my family." Tears filled my eyes as I hugged him tightly. "Thank you, Aaron. That means everything to me." The day of the court hearing arrived like a gathering storm. I walked into the courtroom with Aaron beside me, ready to defend our future. During the proceedings, Clara tried to play the loving aunt, but her words rang hollow. Mark acted like a remorseful father, yet his eyes betrayed his true intentions. When Aaron spoke, his voice steady and resolute, the truth shone through. "I want to stay with my mom. She's been there for me when no one else was." The judge's decision was like a ray of hope. Full custody granted to me with no visitation rights for Mark and Clara. Leaving the courtroom, Mark seethed with anger, and Clara's eyes glinted with malice. But their reactions didn't matter. Aaron and I had prevailed together. While the victory in court brought a brief sense of peace, it was short-lived. Mark and Clara, wounded and desperate, became more dangerous. They launched a smear campaign, spreading lies and rumors about me in our community. I never expected the psychological battle that ensued. One evening, Aaron returned from school, his eyes filled with tears he refused to shed. "Mom, kids at school are saying you took me from Dad, that you're mean for keeping me away from him." His words shattered me. "Aaron, you know that's not true. Everything I've done is to keep you and Elise safe." He nodded, but doubt lingered in his eyes. "I know, Mom, but it's tough. They just don't understand." I held him close, feeling his trembling frame. "I know it's hard, sweetheart, but we'll endure. We're stronger than their lies." As days passed, the rumors turned uglier. Clara, always sharp-tongued, now wielded her words like a weapon, seeking to dismantle my world. I knew I had to fight back, yet I hesitated to stoop to their level. Then one day, Mark appeared at my workplace, feigning remorse. "Lauren, can't we talk, for Aaron's sake?" His words dripped with venom, his facade transparent. "There's nothing to discuss, Mark. You made your choice. Now you live with it." He gripped my arm tightly. "You're destroying my life. Lauren, you and that kid." I pulled away, my voice steady. "No, Mark, you did that to yourself." As I walked away, his parting threat sent a chill down my spine. "This isn't over, Lauren. I won't give up so easily." The legal win secured custody of Aaron for me, but it didn't put an end to the conflict. Mark and Clara persisted, and I could see how it affected Aaron. He was caught in a battle he couldn't grasp, torn between his biological father and the mother who had never let him down. One evening, Aaron approached me, his face filled with uncertainty. "Mom, what if Dad changes? What if he wants to be a real dad?" His words struck a chord. "Aaron, I understand he's your father, and it's natural to hope for that. But we must see people for who they are, not who we wish them to be." There was a moment of silence before Aaron looked up at me, his eyes clear. "I understand. I just wish things were different." I embraced him, murmuring, "I wish the same, Aaron. I truly do." Amidst the ongoing battle, my focus remained on Aaron and Elise. They were my pillars, the reason I fought relentlessly. And I'd do anything to shield them, to give them a life free from the shadows cast by Mark and Clara's deceit. Their relentless campaign turned darker, veering into harassment. They seemed omnipresent, at my workplace, near Aaron's school, always lingering, always observing. It became a psychological siege, its weight bearing down on me daily. Yet, I refused to be cowed. It was time to retaliate, to show them they couldn't disrupt our lives without repercussions. I arranged a meeting with Mr. Thompson, my determination unwavering. "Mr. Thompson, it's time for more decisive legal action. I want to pursue a restraining order against Mark and Clara, and I want to sue them for harassment and defamation," I asserted. Mr. Thompson agreed wholeheartedly. "I believe that's a prudent step, Lauren. Their behavior is intolerable, and they must face the legal consequences." The legal battles were arduous, but I remained steadfast. In court, Mark portrayed himself as the victim, a man unfairly treated by his vengeful ex-wife. Clara, ever the performer, shed tears over being deprived of a role in her nephew's life. However, their theatrics couldn't obscure the truth. The judge saw through their charade and granted the restraining order. Furthermore, they were instructed to compensate for the harm caused by their defamatory actions. Leaving the courtroom, Mark seethed with anger, while Clara's eyes smoldered with unspoken threats. Yet, this time, I refused to be intimidated. The law was on my side. Their defeat in court failed to extinguish their vendetta. If anything, it seemed to stoke their malice further. One day, I received a chilling call from Mark. "You think you've won, Lauren? You think you can ruin my life and walk away? I'll ensure you regret this," he spat over the phone. I gritted my teeth, suppressing the fear his words ignited. "You brought this upon yourself, Mark. I'm merely safeguarding my family." "You haven't seen the end of me, Lauren. This isn't finished," he snarled before disconnecting. His threat lingered in the air like poison, but I refused to let it weaken me. Aaron and Elise were my top priority. They were my world, and I'd do whatever it took to shield them from Mark and Clara's cruelty. However, as days turned into weeks, the constant strain started to wear me down. The perpetual watchfulness, the dread of what Mark might do next, the weight of single motherhood. It consumed me entirely. One evening, as I tucked Elise into bed, Aaron approached me, his expression serious. "Mom, are we going to be okay?" Dad sounded really angry on the phone. I enveloped him in a hug, my heart breaking for the burden he carried. "We'll be okay, Aaron. I won't let anything happen to us, I promise." Yet even as I uttered those words, I knew the battle was far from over. Mark and Clara loomed like a looming storm, and I had to be prepared for whatever they threw our way. The weeks post-court ruling were fraught with tension and vigilance. Mark and Clara, constrained by the restraining order, retreated into the shadows, their silence more unsettling than their threats. I sensed this lull was just the calm before another storm. Then it struck. Clara, in a desperate move, staged a public spectacle. While I was grocery shopping, she emerged out of nowhere, hurling accusations. "You're a monster, Lauren. You've torn our family apart." Clara's cries drew the attention of bystanders. I stood firm, my voice unwavering. "Clara, you need to leave. You're violating the restraining order." Enraged, she spat back. "I don't care. The world needs to see your true colors." But her theatrics backfired. The store manager, recognizing the disruption, called the police. As they escorted a hysterical Clara away, her facade of the wronged aunt crumbled. This public meltdown proved to be the tipping point. The police charged Clara with violating the restraining order and causing a public disturbance. Mark, too, faced repercussions. His involvement in the harassment and defamation, now laid bare, led to his arrest. As I witnessed their apprehension, a twinge of pity stirred within me. They had plummeted into their own abyss, a pit of lies and animosity they had dug themselves. Yet this feeling was swiftly eclipsed by a sense of justice. They were finally being held accountable for their actions. In the aftermath, the community's perception shifted. The truth about Mark and Clara's deceit and manipulation came to light. Those who had once whispered behind my back now extended their apologies and support. Aaron, witnessing his father and aunt's downfall, grappled with conflicting emotions. Mom, is it wrong to feel relieved about Dad and Aunt Clara getting arrested? I squeezed his hand, empathizing with his inner turmoil. It's okay to feel relieved, Aaron. They caused us a lot of pain. It's natural to seek justice. The battle that had consumed us for months appeared to be at an end. Mark and Clara, once formidable adversaries, were now diminished. Their ability to harm us had been stripped away. As I tucked Aaron and Elise into bed that night, a sense of tranquility settled over me. We had weathered the storm and emerged triumphant. Our future lay before us, bright and full of promise. Though life had thrust us into turbulent waters, we had learned to navigate the tempest. Now it was time to relish the calm, to embrace the fresh beginning that awaited us. Hi, I'm a lady who works as a cook. I recently got married, and I'm really enjoying being a newlywed. I usually keep my past to myself and don't talk much about it. I don't have many friends, but I tell people I grew up like any other kid, even though it wasn't that simple. I had a tough childhood, but I was lucky to have my grandpa who loved me a lot. He was like my only family because I didn't have parents around. My grandpa worked hard, sometimes at construction sites or collecting and selling things like paper or fruits and veggies. I don't have baby photos because we couldn't afford them, but when I turned 6, my grandpa made sure I had a picture taken every year on my birthday to capture my growth. I didn't go to kindergarten, but my grandpa taught me basics like the alphabet and numbers. My grandpa didn't have much money, but he was well respected in our neighborhood. The neighbors would pitch in to help take care of me because they knew my grandpa was working hard to raise me. This meant I got to have warm meals and play with the older kids in the neighborhood, who taught me a lot of things. When my grandpa finished work, he'd come get me. Our house was small and old, with just one bedroom, a kitchen, and a bathroom. It could get pretty uncomfortable in the extremes of weather, but we managed okay. In the summer, my grandpa fixed up an old fan he found, and in the winter, he washed and reused old blankets to keep me warm. He did everything he could to take care of me, even though we didn't have much. Our neighbors were also struggling, but they still helped us a lot. They came to school with me on my first day, took turns attending parent-teacher meetings at my grandpa's request, and even packed food for my school trips as a way to say thank you for his hard work. My grandpa was a handyman who could fix just about anything around the house. In our friendly neighborhood, people helped each other out with their skills, but gossip still circulated. Some folks couldn't help but wonder why my grandpa was raising me alone in such tough circumstances. He never really talked about my parents when I was growing up. Whenever I asked, he'd just say they had passed away soon after I was born and were now in heaven. When I was younger, I thought they had died from some serious illness like cancer. But as I got older, I started hearing different stories, mainly from the women in the neighborhood. They'd whisper about how my grandpa had never been married and how nobody had ever seen my mom or dad. It was confusing because my grandpa had always told me they were my real parents. And if I had parents, shouldn't I have had a grandma too? It didn't add up. As I listened to her, I realized something strange. We didn't have any family photos of my parents, not even one of my grandma. Our photo album only contained pictures that my grandpa insisted we take every year, along with some snapshots our neighbors had taken of us. When I reached middle school and started going through puberty, I began to rebel a bit, questioning my identity more and more. Living only with my grandpa made it even harder. I had so many questions about my parents, and by ninth grade, I couldn't hold them in any longer. I sat my grandpa down and bombarded him with questions, desperate for answers about where my mom and dad were, whether they were alive or dead, and why there were no photos of them or my grandma. I felt like I was interrogating him like a criminal, but I needed to know. As I got emotional and started crying, my grandpa just held me close and reassured me. He explained that my parents couldn't raise me, so they left me with him when I was a baby, hoping to come back for me someday. He showed me a small bracelet they had left behind, saying it was with me when I was born in the hospital. Seeing that bracelet, some of my curiosity eased. Even though I learned that my parents had abandoned me, knowing that my grandpa loved me and raised me with care was enough. From that day on, I started to find some peace within myself. I began to see a way out of the challenges of puberty. College wasn't an option for me due to our financial situation, and I didn't want to add to my grandpa's burdens, so I made up my mind about my career before even starting high school. "Grandpa," I said, "I want to be a cook. I plan to take career classes during my senior year, earn my cooking license, and find a job right after graduation." My grandpa asked if I was sure I didn't want to go to college, offering to do whatever it took to save up for tuition. I reassured him that cooking was my passion and that I wanted to set things up so he wouldn't feel guilty about it. True to my word, once I reached my senior year of high school, I dove into cooking classes and earned several licenses. I secured a job a month before graduation and received my first paycheck just a week after. With it, I bought some steak to celebrate, though I couldn't afford to dine out. Back home, I surprised my grandpa with the steak and handed him an envelope containing some of my earnings. "This is for you, Grandpa," I said. "It's what's left after buying the steaks." My grandpa was speechless. "Patty," he finally said, "I can't accept this. You worked hard for this money. You should use it for yourself. I can't possibly take it." He insisted, pushing the envelope back toward me. "Grandpa, if you don't take it, I'll leave home. Why should you be the only one doing things for me? I really wanted to give you this money," I threatened, feeling a surge of frustration. Eventually, my grandpa relented, tears welling up as he accepted the envelope. He tucked it into a book he enjoyed reading. Sharing that steak meal in the place I'd always called home felt incredibly special. For the first time in my life, I felt proud to do something for my grandpa. We chatted happily as we ate, until a knock interrupted us. Who could be knocking at this hour? My grandpa wondered aloud as I went to answer the door. To our surprise, 2 police officers stood there. "Is Richard O'Leary here?" they asked, and I confirmed that he was my grandpa. "And you must be Patty Rowland?" they inquired, and I affirmed that too. "Both of you need to come with us to the police station," they stated matter-of-factly. When I asked why, they informed us, "Mr. O'Leary is being accused of kidnapping a child. You both need to come with us." I was stunned. Kidnapping. I couldn't fathom why my grandpa was being accused of such a heinous crime. I protested that he wasn't that kind of person, but the police insisted we accompany them. That night, my grandpa and I found ourselves in a police car headed to the station. Despite the gravity of the situation, my grandpa remained oddly calm. We waited in a designated area until eventually, the police returned with some other individuals accompanying them. A woman in her 50s entered the room, accompanied by a couple holding hands. She approached us, pointing accusingly at my grandpa. "That's him. He's the one who kidnapped the president's daughter." She exclaimed loudly, shocked and confused. I demanded answers. "What do you mean? Who did my grandpa supposedly kidnap?" I shouted back at her. The police intervened, trying to calm both the woman and me down. Behind the shouting woman, the couple stepped forward, and the woman addressed me with tears in her eyes. "Are you Patty?" she asked, and I awkwardly nodded in response. Suddenly, she embraced me and burst into tears. "Patty, it's Mom. I'm your mother." Her words hit me like a bolt from the blue. I was stunned and bewildered, but my grandpa's composed demeanor added to my confusion. He stood up calmly and addressed her. "So, you finally returned. Only now. Are you okay?" The woman in her 50s scoffed, accusing my grandpa of kidnapping. I vehemently protested his innocence, while the couple watched on, clearly perplexed. The woman in her 50s went on to explain that a couple had visited her orphanage, claiming they had left their baby there and had now returned to reclaim their child. They left behind a letter stating their intention to return for the child, along with hospital paperwork. I was about 3 or 4 at the time. However, despite searching through records and adoption papers, we found nothing about the child. Then, a distant memory surfaced. There was a child who went missing years ago, causing a major commotion. Despite reporting to the police and filing missing child reports, she was never found. I recalled an old man who used to work at the orphanage abruptly quitting around that time. He had been overly attentive to the children, and I had considered firing him before he vanished. Could he have been involved in kidnapping a child from the orphanage, leaving behind a distraught woman? We underwent DNA testing as my grandpa calmly observed the couple. He asked the police, "Are they truly Patty's parents?" The police insisted we wait for the results. Then, my grandpa pleaded with the officers, offering to stay in jail if necessary, but asking for the chance to tell his side of the story. Grasping the officer's hands, he began to speak. The police acknowledged his right to defend himself. Grandpa agreed to share his story once the DNA confirmed the couple's parentage. Reluctantly, the police consulted the couple, who agreed to the arrangement if it meant hearing the truth. While awaiting the DNA results, my grandpa remained at home under recognizance, and I continued my routine, going to and from work. 2 days later, the DNA results came in, showing a 99.99% match. After 20 years, I finally met my parents. Hearing the news, I was overcome with a strange mix of emotions. Tears streamed down my face uncontrollably, but my parents embraced me, soothing my sobs. The orphanage director glared at my grandpa with fury, as if she could kill him on the spot. "Now you must arrest this old man for kidnapping. Were you planning to ruin my establishment?" She raged, her anger palpable. True to his word, my grandpa began his tale, producing a stack of papers from home and presenting them to the police one by one. "It's true that I worked as a janitor at the orphanage, not far from where I live now," he began. "One morning, I arrived early to find a young child sleeping outside the orphanage, curled up in a ball. I assumed she had been abandoned by her parents. Concerned for her well-being, I tried to bring her inside, but she woke up and, with her black eyes, called me Grandpa." Grandpa continued, explaining how the child handed him a bag containing a doll, paperwork, and a letter promising to return for their daughter. "I took her into the orphanage, where she began to live," he recounted. "While cleaning, I often saw the child, but she always seemed to have a dark expression. It wasn't until about a month later that I discovered the reason. The woman was abusing her, especially when the orphanage faced financial strain due to overcrowding. Another child had arrived, and she took out her frustration on this poor girl." Grandpa described how the child was forced to do arduous chores, her hands red and bleeding from the harsh treatment. "I confronted the director multiple times, urging her to stop mistreating the child," he continued. "But instead of listening, she fired me. As I was leaving, I couldn't bear to see the child so unhappy. That's why I did what I did," my grandpa explained, his voice tinged with remorse. He recounted how he had taken me in after witnessing the neglect and abuse I suffered under the orphanage director's care. The director didn't even bother to read the documents in the bag. He continued, neglecting her duties and subjecting me to abuse. "That's why I took Patty in, to protect her and raise her as my own granddaughter." After his revelation, the police and I were left in a state of uncertainty. The orphanage director, however, remained defiant, accusing my grandpa of fabricating stories to tarnish her reputation. "I'll sue you for slander," she threatened, her voice dripping with venom. The police pressed my grandpa for evidence to support his claims. With confidence, he mentioned a former employee, Mrs. Cumberland, who could attest to the abuse. While we awaited Mrs. Cumberland's testimony, I was speechless, grappling with the truth unfolding before me. In the late afternoon, Mrs. Cumberland arrived at the police station, armed with photographs she had taken of my injured hands and other signs of abuse. My parents, upon seeing the evidence, were overcome with emotion. The undeniable proof left the orphanage director cornered, and my parents wasted no time in announcing their intention to sue her for her crimes. Despite her pleas for forgiveness, she was arrested and charged with child abuse. That night, my grandpa and I returned home, the weight of the day's revelations heavy on our minds. From my parents, I learned the heartbreaking truth. They had left me at the orphanage due to financial hardship, hoping to reclaim me once they were stable. When they finally returned, they discovered I was missing and unregistered. Only recently did they learn of the possibility that my grandpa had taken me in. Although their actions couldn't be excused, my parents found solace in the fact that they had finally found me after years of searching. They faced repercussions for abandoning me, but now they sought to alleviate their guilt. I harbored no resentment toward my parents. I was simply eager and anxious to finally meet them. Nor did I hold any blame toward my grandpa, who had saved me and showered me with love and care during my time with him. His unwavering support was the reason I couldn't hate my parents. I assured them that I understood their circumstances and expressed gratitude for their efforts to find me. As my mom hugged me, tears streaming down her face, she knelt before my grandpa. Without him, I wouldn't have had such a wonderful upbringing, she acknowledged. Despite his protests, my parents insisted on taking care of him and urged us to live together as one family. Eventually, we moved in with my parents, but the adjustment wasn't easy, as we had spent more time apart than together. Eventually, my parents arranged for a separate house for my grandpa and me next to theirs, allowing us to live comfortably while still being close to family. After work, we would gather for dinner and watch TV together, just like any other family. After I got married, my parents invited my grandpa to live with us, and we seamlessly merged into one big family. Meanwhile, my parents pursued legal action against the orphanage director, adamant that they couldn't forgive her. During the proceedings, I met my husband, who was working as a prosecutor on the case. He admired my grandpa's selflessness in raising a child who wasn't his own for nearly 2 decades. It made me reflect on whether I could have done the same in his shoes. I hold my grandpa in the highest regard and wish him a long and healthy life. Thank you all for listening to my story. Your support and comments mean a lot to me. Wishing you all a day filled with happiness and good fortune.